I'm traveling with my ex. We'll share a bed in a private room. But trust me, my fiancée texted me while she was with him. Then came back pregnant and demanded I take responsibility. But the court's ruling made her collapse. I'll start by saying this for everyone listening. The day your partner sits down with you with a serious face and tells you something like, I want to propose a test of trust, don't think twice. Don't analyze it. Get up and leave, because what comes after is never good. And I say this from experience, because that's how I discovered the true face of my ex, Pamela. We were already living together. We had been in a relationship for almost 4 years. We had gotten engaged a few months ago, and our families were happy. We hadn't set an exact date for the wedding yet, because we wanted to save a little and do it right, without debt. In short, everything was calm. Honestly, I'm not a jealous person. I've always believed that whoever wants to do something will do it anyway, with or without permission. And I'd rather they do it without lying to my face. But look how curious. In the end, the lie came disguised as a spiritual discourse on trust. One day, Pamela came home from work more serious than usual. She told me she needed to talk to me about something important. I thought it would be about the wedding or that she wanted to propose some change to our savings plans. But no. She had me sit in the living room, positioned herself in front of me like someone about to give a presidential speech, and asked me, do you trust me? I, without thinking too much, told her yes. I even thanked her for asking me. I told her yes, that in a relationship the most important thing was trust. Big mistake. As soon as those words left my mouth, she smiled as if she had won a point in a debate. I'm glad to hear you say that, she replied, because I think we're already at a stage where we should prove to each other that we trust one another. And I'd like to propose a test of trust. At that moment, I already felt a tingling on the back of my neck. When someone tells you that you need to prove trust, what they really mean is, I'm going to do something that you know is wrong, but I want you to accept it with a smile. Still, I let her talk. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but she made sure to confirm them quickly. She looked me in the eyes with that tone of voice they use when they want to manipulate you without you protesting, and said, I've decided to go on a trip with a friend. With just that, I told her no. Without explanations. My response was direct. No. Surprised, as if she didn't expect me to react so quickly, but instead of explaining herself, she asked me to listen. I already knew where this was going, but I stayed seated anyway. No, you just said you trust me. She blurted out. Well, this is the test. I'm going to be honest with you. He's not just any friend. It's Martine. Well, Martine was her ex, an ex who she herself had told me years ago had cheated on her, an ex who, according to her, she had to forgive for many things because he was immature and didn't know what he wanted. And now, suddenly, he was a friend worthy of trips together. I want you to understand, she said solemnly, that when you promise something you must keep it. A long time ago, when I was still with him, I promised him that one day we would take a trip together, and we never got to do it. Now the opportunity has come up, and I think it's important to keep my word. I just stared at her for a few seconds. I don't know if she expected me to stand up and applaud, but what I did was the opposite. Well then, we're done. She got offended. She put on her wounded dignity face. The one they use when they are the ones doing something wrong, but they want you to look like the bad guy. Don't you trust me? She repeated as if it were a definitive weapon. I did trust you, I told her. Right now, with all this you're saying, you're proving the opposite to me. She frowned and told me, this has nothing to do with the past. It's a test of maturity. I replied, yes, the maturity to understand that you don't travel with an ex when you're in a relationship. At least if you respect your relationship. That's when she lost her composure. She said I wasn't understanding, that I was reacting like a teenager, that we would talk about it when she got back. There will be no coming back, I told her. We're done. But she insisted. She said we weren't going to end a years-long relationship over a little trip with a friend. I repeated the same thing to her. We're done. She got up annoyed and said she wasn't going to keep arguing, that we would talk about it when she got back. I replied that there was nothing to talk about, that everything was already clear, but she kept refusing to accept the end. She said that she hadn't broken up with me, that we would talk more calmly after the trip. The trip was scheduled for 2 days later. Since we lived together, I guess she didn't want to see me again to avoid facing the issue, so she stayed over at a friend's house. As for me, I'm not going to deny that it hurt, but it also made it clear to me that there was nothing to salvage. I don't know if you all would buy that story, but I didn't. I didn't wait for her to come back to find me at home like an idiot. I used those 2 days to pack my things. I put my clothes in boxes. I grabbed my tools from the workshop, my books, my papers. I gathered everything that was mine and I left. Before leaving, I called my parents. I told them the engagement was off. They were surprised, as was logical. My mother asked if I was sure that I shouldn't do anything impulsive, but I explained it to them and they understood. Now comes the most curious part. When I was gathering my things in the bathroom, I opened the drawer where she kept her creams and makeup to get the first aid kit that I had put there. And among all that, what do you think I found? Her engagement ring, the one I had given her. She had it stored there as if it were any other accessory. She hadn't even taken it with her when she went to sleep at her friend's house. I don't know how long it had been since she wore it, but that detail confirmed what I already knew. She had already made the decision long before telling me. What she told me wasn't a consultation, it was a formality. She already knew she was leaving. She just wanted me to accept it with applause. Obviously, I kept the ring. I could pawn it and get some extra money. When Pamela went on her trip, I thought I would finally have a few days of silence. I had only blocked her on WhatsApp. A mistake, because a few hours later she started writing to me on Instagram. The first message said something like, "So you blocked me. How immature." And further down, "Well, I'm letting you know we arrived safely. We're sleeping in separate rooms. Don't worry. Trust me." It came with a photo of the hotel, one of those they send to make everything seem normal. As soon as I saw it, I rolled my eyes. I didn't answer. I just went to her profile and blocked her. Also, I wasn't going to waste time with someone who was trying to make me look like the jealous guy in the story. At that moment, she still didn't know I had moved out, but it didn't take long for her to find out. 2 days after returning from the trip, she showed up at my new address. I don't know who gave her the information, but someone from our mutual acquaintances must have opened their mouth. She knocked on the door several times until I came out. She told me she had gone to our old apartment, found it empty, and got scared thinking something had happened to me. Then she changed her tone. She said what I was doing was silly, that I should calm down, that I shouldn't act like a spoiled child. I repeated the same thing I had told her before her trip. We were over. There was nothing to talk about, but she insisted, putting her foot in the door as if she didn't want to let me close it. I told her to leave. She just laughed. A few minutes later, she started shouting from outside. Not insults, but phrases to make herself heard. She was saying, "You don't want to listen to me, but you will anyway." Then she started justifying everything. Nothing happened. We slept in separate rooms. Martin is a gentleman. He even holds you in high regard. That part made me laugh. The ex who had cheated on her, the same guy with whom she had decided to fulfill a promise, now held me in high regard. It almost seemed like a joke. I called building security to have her removed. Several neighbors had already peeked out their windows, and I didn't want to end up recorded in a gossip video. They asked her to leave. She kept talking as she walked away, saying she wasn't going to give up, that it was all a misunderstanding. Over the next few days, she showed up several more times. She would stand in front of the building or wait for me nearby. She would send me indirect messages through acquaintances. On one occasion, she even left a note at the building's reception asking me not to destroy what we had. Later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was her, of course. It said that if I kept ignoring her, she was going to talk to my mother. It didn't surprise me. I know her. I know how she thinks. I guess she thought that if my mom got involved, I would give in. I replied, "Do it. Go see her." And she did. What I didn't expect was that my mother already knew everything. As soon as I told her about the trip, she understood the kind of person Pamela was. So when she showed up at my parents' house, she wasn't greeted with hugs or pity. My mother isn't one to shout, but she has the kind of character you can feel just by looking at her. Pamela arrived with her prepared speech, that it was all a misunderstanding, that nothing had happened, that I was the one exaggerating, that it was just a test of trust, that she needed someone to make me see reason. My mother let her talk for a while, then told her she already knew everything, that there was nothing to justify. Pamela tried to play the victim, saying I was impulsive, that I didn't listen to her, that I was acting out of pride. But my mother doesn't usually have much patience. She told her that if she wanted respect, she should have shown it before going on a trip with an ex. Pamela was speechless. She tried to change the subject, to say she didn't want trouble, that she just wanted to talk to me. My mother interrupted her and asked her to leave, but Pamela kept insisting, saying it was unfair, that she had only wanted to fulfill a promise, that it meant nothing, that they had to help her. That's when my mother lost her patience. She didn't insult her, but she made it clear that she wasn't welcome. She told her to leave before she had to throw her out by force. And since Pamela wouldn't move, my mom lost her patience and threw her out with slaps from her flip-flops. Sadly, I couldn't see it firsthand, but thanks to my dad, I was able to find out everything. That was the last time she tried to contact me directly. After my mother threw her out, she stopped showing up. She didn't call again, or write, or send indirect messages. I guess she finally understood that her game of trust was over and that she had no one left to manipulate. My peace didn't last too long. Almost a month after everything had calmed down, Pamela showed up again. I wasn't expecting her. I had no reason to see her, nor any desire to listen to her. But when someone like her decides she still has something to say, she does it no matter what. She asked to talk for a moment. I told her I had nothing to discuss, but she insisted, saying she only needed a few minutes. To avoid a scene in front of the building, I agreed. She came in, sat across from me, and was quiet for a few seconds. She seemed nervous, but not out of guilt. It was the kind of silence one makes when preparing a move. Then she took a deep breath and dropped it on me. "I'm pregnant." She said it bluntly, straight to the point. I stayed still, waiting to see what the hidden trap was. It didn't take long to arrive. "And it's yours," she added with an almost rehearsed tone. "You have to think about the baby. We can't keep fighting over silly things. This is a time to come together, not to pull apart." I looked at her without saying anything. She interpreted my silence as an opportunity to keep talking. "You should come back home," she continued. "We can get married as soon as possible, so the baby will have a stable home. I don't want him to grow up in the middle of problems." I had to restrain myself from laughing. It was absurd. I reminded her that we had broken up before her trip and that right after spending several days with her ex, she now coincidentally happened to be pregnant. I told her it was too much of a coincidence. "Don't start with your paranoia," she replied. "Nothing happened. You and I were always careful, but methods fail. It's something that can happen." "Yes," I told her, "but it can also happen that the father is someone else." Her face changed. That false confidence she always had was gone. She looked at me as if I had disrespected her in the greatest way possible. "Are you saying I cheated on you?" she asked, outraged. "No, I'm not saying it. I'm thinking it," I answered. "And to be sure, I need a paternity test." She crossed her arms and sighed heavily, as if I were a child that needed to be educated. "How low you've fallen," she said. "I can't believe you distrust me like that. You were different before. You trusted me before. Before you didn't ask me to believe in you while you were going on a trip with your ex." I reminded her. "If you really want me to take responsibility, I will. But only if a test proves that child is mine. I'm not going to marry you or get back into a relationship." "And what if I don't want to do the test?" she asked defiantly. "Then there's nothing more to talk about," I replied calmly. "I'm not going to take care of a child that I don't know is mine." She stood up abruptly, slamming her hand on the table. "You're a coward. You're leaving me alone at the worst moment of my life. You know everything I've been through. I'm just asking you to trust me one time. Just one foot." That sentence made me smile. Trust me. The same one she had used to justify her trip. The same old excuse, only now wrapped in drama. "No," I told her. She left my apartment in a fury. She said I was going to regret it. She wanted me to take responsibility the hard way. I didn't answer anything. I closed the door and stood in silence for a moment, trying to process everything. I was no longer surprised by her behavior, but it did exhaust me. She always had to turn everything into a drama or a manipulation. A week went by without hearing from her. Don't get me wrong. I was happy not to hear from her, but knowing her, she was probably plotting something. As a precaution, I found a lawyer and told him everything that had happened. He listened to me calmly, took note of the dates, and explained what could happen if she tried something legal later on. He told me not to worry, that the important thing was to have everything documented in case things got complicated. So here I am, waiting to see what she comes up with. I have no news from her, but knowing her, I don't think she'll stay quiet for long. The only thing I'm sure of is that no matter what happens, I'm not going to let myself be manipulated again. So guys, no tests of trust. Update 1. Thanks to everyone for your comments. I read several and honestly, it doesn't even surprise me anymore that many of you have also been hit with the famous test of trust. It seems to be a universal excuse to justify nonsense. But anyway, to the point, it's been almost a year and a half since everything I last talked about. And yes, there have been developments. A couple of months ago, I was officially notified that I had a court hearing. Pamela had filed a lawsuit against me, claiming that I should be responsible for the baby that, according to her, was mine. I wasn't surprised. I saw it coming from the day she left my apartment screaming that she would make me take responsibility the hard way. So I showed up with my lawyer. When I saw her in the room, something caught my attention. She looked nervous. She didn't have the same confidence as before, that look of superiority she used to put on when she thought she was in control. She was holding the baby in her arms, and, despite everything, I felt a little sorry, not for her, but for the child who was not at fault for anything. The judge started the hearing directly. He asked Pamela if she maintained her claim, and she said yes. She said I was the father, that I had refused to answer her, and that I had disappeared from her life, leaving her alone at the most difficult time. The whole speech perfectly rehearsed. The judge gave me the floor, and I explained what had happened. I told the whole story, the trip with the ex, the test of trust, the breakup, the suspicious pregnancy, everything with dates and details, supported by the messages I had saved. When I finished, the judge was silent for a moment and then ordered a DNA test. The funny thing was seeing Pamela's face. As soon as she heard she had to undergo the test, her expression crumbled. She tried to hide it, but her fear was noticeable. I don't know who might have advised her, but she clearly hoped not to have to reach that point. Maybe she thought she would intimidate me with the lawsuit and that I, out of fear, would give in without asking for proof. Her lawyer tried to argue that it wasn't necessary, that she had enough evidence, but the judge was firm. Resemblances are not evidence, madam. Here things are resolved with scientific proof. So there was no more discussion. We were both summoned for the test, and the date was set. The day we went to the lab, she barely looked at me. She was carrying the baby and trying to act calm, but you could see the tremor in her hands. I signed the papers, did what they asked of me, and left without saying a word. A few weeks passed until the result arrived. I went with my lawyer to pick it up. Pamela was there too. As soon as she saw me come in, she tried to avoid my gaze. The judge opened the envelope in front of us, read silently for a few seconds, and then said in a dry tone, "The result is negative. There is no biological link between the gentleman and the minor." Pamela froze. She didn't say a single word. She didn't even try to feign surprise. Her face said it all. She lowered her head, hugged the baby, and stared at the floor. The judge concluded the hearing and asked us to leave. It was exactly what I already knew from the beginning, but at least now it was in writing, with a seal and a signature. My lawyer advised me not to stand idly by. He said that these types of accusations leave a mark, even if they are false, and that I should set a precedent. So we filed a countersuit for defamation, legal fees, and damage to my reputation. Pamela had to learn that lying and manipulating don't come for free. The process took a few months. When the sentence finally came out, the judge ordered Pamela to cover part of the court costs and pay a symbolic fine for defamation. Nothing that would make me rich, but enough for her to learn. And above all, it was made clear in the record that she had tried to attribute a child to me that was not mine. I'm not going to lie, I feel sorry for that baby. He's not at fault for anything, but I'm completely sure that the father is her ex, Martine. The funny thing is that I recently learned from mutual friends that he left the country. According to what they told me, as soon as he found out about the pregnancy, he disappeared. Many people have told me that I should get revenge. If he were within my reach, maybe I would. But to begin with, I don't know him directly. And besides, since he fled the country, there's no way. And above all, honestly, it would be taking a lot of trouble for a woman who is not worth it. Life will teach her. I trust in that. From what I know, Pamela is desperately looking for him. She's after him, trying to get him to take responsibility, but she's having no luck. Meanwhile, the child was left in the care of her parents. Apparently, they were the ones who took on the upbringing, because Pamela can't find a stable job and can't support him alone. Her parents also said nothing during this whole process. Not an apology or a word. They simply disappeared from the scene as if nothing had happened. I guess the shame was greater than the desire to keep defending her. And well, to close with something that many asked about in the comments of the first part, the engagement ring. She never asked me for it or mentioned it, so I sold it. It wasn't a fortune, but it helped me pay part of the lawyer's fees and cover some personal expenses. Several months have passed since the trial ended, and I haven't heard anything more from her. I'm not interested. I suppose she's still living with her parents, trying to put her life back together, or looking for another person to convince with her speeches about trust. So, guys, again, no tests of trust. Because when someone tells you that, what they're really doing is preparing you for a betrayal. And believe me, there's no worse feeling than realizing you were right from the beginning.